Domain Tools helps security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the Domain Tools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/BSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter.
We are back, and we get to talk about innovation, and apparently we're far enough away from RSA now that things are starting to move. But first, remember, we've got on-demand material. I just mentioned it, and that's one of the things that we're excited about this year. Again, we listen. So we know everybody loves the webcast, and we're going to keep doing those as well. But then we've got some on-demand material. It's similar, but a little bit more catered to watching it on a schedule that works for you around a topic where you need some insight and you want some competing perspectives or viewpoints, and you want to try to understand it better, communicate it better. You can check that out at securityweekly.com/on-demand. And as always, love to hear what you like about it and what we can do to make it better. All right, so Paul, not really getting crazy yet in terms of load, but definitely seeing movement. The two big ones this week were two IPOs, security space, looking for big valuations. Carbon Black came out. Now, I mentioned this last time with one of the other recent security IPOs, but Crunchbase, and I put the link in the show notes, fantastic breakdown. Like looks at pre-money valuations, looks at dilutions in shares and what's available in the S1 filing, and says, and in fact, their bottom line was, do you think this will hit the multiple that Zscaler did? They said, no, here's why. And they gave a couple cogent regions. I think it's great analysis if you want to get into that level of detail. Yeah, well, and it looks at the market and it's crowded. It also said that Zscaler was expanding revenue, whereas Carbon Black is still operating at a loss. Although I'm doing that from memory, I may have gotten that slightly wrong. And then it was talking about reducing costs versus expanding costs and cost of delivery. These are all the things we talk about. Well, these are the differences that determine how you're going to do and how you're going to price it. So they're pricing the IPO for Carbon Black between $15 and $17 a share, which puts them at $1 billion valuation, and we call those unicorns, which makes absolutely no sense to me anymore. But that's what the industry still calls them, and so that's what we're looking for. By the way, they've taken on $191 million over what I could tell is to be 9 rounds. Their last was a Series F round. Think about that. So when we talk about these rounds, and a couple of you have appreciated this, and we'll try to document this out a little bit better too. By Series F, like that's basically we're growing. We need more money. We're growing. And at that point, you're going to be acquired or you're going to IPO. Like by an F round, now you're proven out, you're good. But the only way that you're going to get the exit is to take on more money. Now, they did that September 2015. So that was 2.5 years ago. That's good. I mean, and the valuation they had then was $609 million. Their post-money valuation in 2015 was $609 million. So to IPO between 15 and 17 a share, taking a look at the way that all works out, their goal when they debut is to be worth $1 billion. So
now they're basing a lot of this analysis on what we call an S1, right? That's the documentation that a company has to file and make public when the company's getting ready to go public. Did I get that correct? I'm not the world's foremost expert on this subject.
Yeah. I mean, what we started to see, and I apologize, for whatever reason, it's Monday, we got good energy, but I'm blanking on it. There's a couple people that have found that they can do confidential filings, and a couple people that have found, like Spotify recently skipped all that, just listed. But the traditional way to do it is you have a quiet period where you can't talk about it. You file your S1.
Yep.
That's made public. That has all the details so that an investor theoretically can make a good decision about whether they want to invest in you or not. And that's mostly institutional level stuff. Like you and I, it's going to be tough for us to get in on some of this stuff.
Well, so the value for us as security professionals in reviewing an S1 for a security company that's going public is in there they have to list the competition and kind of their assessment of the market and competition. So I used to go read S1s when, I worked for, security vendors and whatnot, because it was the competition, in this case, if they were going public, it was their view on what other companies are doing, maybe even including the one I was working for, right? So I would definitely go read the S1s for that reason, to understand what the competition thought. Now, you may be working in security and wondering, what does, for example, Carbon Black think of their position in the market, and what do they think of their competition, and how do they differentiate themselves and view what the competition is doing? That's usually documented fairly well in the S1, although it's a biased opinion, right? It's Carbon Black's view of what's going on. But I thought that's something that, if you go read the S1, you skip right to that section, that's something you're going to want to read. A lot of the other information, as Michael's alluded to, is financials and such, which are important, but to me, not as interesting as the assessment of the market in the S1.
No, you're right. And now you bring that up. All right, so there'll be another segment we'll do at some point where we'll look into how to read an S1. We're also going to look at 10K and other things of publicly traded companies, because, and what you triggered in me, Paul, was that every time we see like, Target took a hit on this, they had a bill of $200 million. Yeah, no, maybe. Let's go read the 10K. Let's go look at their quarterly filings. Let's go take a look at where they do it. And I learned a trick a long time ago about where to look. It's goodwill. You look at their goodwill offsets and stuff. Those are things we'll start we'll start showing people how to break that down. So
yeah, it'd be awesome.
These are the types of things that we'll do. The other one, and I got to tell you, this kind of surprised me.
And I want to, before you get to this one too, with Carbon Black, these companies and Endpoint, the larger ones, man, they're taking on huge amounts of funding and huge amounts of valuation before IPO. It makes me wonder, to be competitive in this market, the amount of funding that you need, and where all that funding is going, and why some of these endpoint companies now are taking on a ton of VC money, and they're going IPO to generate even more money after that. Is it an expensive problem to solve? Why is that? Is curious to me.
Well, hold on too. So the exit, the IPO, it gets them more money, but it also gets the VCs their exit, which then frees up their money to go put their money into more things.
Gotcha.
And so, but I think you pointed out something that's really interesting. If you want to get into a really crowded space today, and we point this out. Look, they got a $10 million Series A. Oof. In most cases, that's not a Series A number. That's you're off to the races. That said, depending on the marketplace, that could be a Series A, because the competition is so intense. But what we see with the endpoint stuff is it's a pretty vast market. So when we look at the total addressable market, if you tell me the number of endpoints that exist today, and then if you start looking at IoT, and that's actually one of the updates we got coming up here in a minute, and you start looking at ways that that's going to happen, this is a big space. So I think the pricing of the market represents a couple things. It's a previously intractable problem that we're getting our hands around, and we're coming up with new paradigms and ways to do it. And I know you and I are going to do we're going to do a talk after this that will be part of the on demand, where we look at this space a little bit differently for people to start to break that down. And I've loved listening to you talk about it. So it's exciting to sit there with you to talk about it. But it's I think there's a lot that people will pick up from you on that. You need a lot of money to compete in a hotly contested space. Because this is a big deal, this easily extends well beyond the global 2000. This is a Fortune 5000 or better problem, and I bet really get it right gets down into the mid market quickly. So it's a huge marketplace. Yeah, it's a big problem, and as we'll break off in our on demand stuff, there's a couple different ways to take a look at it and slice it. So I think you're going to keep seeing some money at it for a while, but the people who exit are clearly going to do better than the people who don't, typically.
And our next announcement is pretty much along those lines, right?
Yeah, this one, I got to tell you, it shocked me. I guess it's because I just haven't paid enough attention. Now, I've used Avast in years past. I'm familiar with them. Good reputation, and I had good impressions of them. So they're looking to be $4.5 billion as an IPO. And it's like, wait, what? I got to be fair. I didn't see that coming, especially because, if you think about it, it's Avast and
Sophos?
Was listed Sophos is listed there. No, I was trying to think of the other. The other AV company was Avira, that both for a long time it was like, look, we're free, like we're good, like we're totally free, come use us. And then, by the way, if you're an SMB or whatever, AVG was the same way, right? If you're an SMB, you can pay us, or you can upgrade for these other features, but we'll give us stuff for free. You want proof that works? Well, there you go. There's your proof that works.
Yep.
Now, it turns out Avast is PE backed. So they've got over $100 million in funding. And a lot of that came from private equity. By the way, I saw a really weird post, and I'm not going to call it where. I'll just say in social media, there was a discussion about whether, you should be proud as a company, whether you took VC or proud. Well, I didn't take VC, and then somebody else said, well, private equity is better than VC. Okay, stop with all that. Like, no, they're funding sources. They have different reasons. There is no shame in taking funding if you're running a company, and there's no shame in not taking funding if you're running a company. There are different models and different ways of doing stuff. So just be careful with some of that stuff when you see other people. Don't glob onto that. So here's the interesting thing about this one. They're going to list on the London Stock Exchange. So again, if you go to the Reuters article here, it's some good insights, especially on how the London Stock Exchange works. The London Stock Exchange is now aggressively trying to get tech companies to IPO there. The only other security company on the London Stock Exchange is Sophos. So I did think that was interesting, and that lets us keep looking at other exchanges and other places. I've been talking to a lot of people in London lately, so looking forward to getting enough momentum to make a trip, but should be some neat stuff there. So those are the two big IPOs. IPOs are big deals because those are exits. It's also big because it shows us how, as Paul pointed out, what's in the S1. Let's see how they price it. Let's see how it debuts, and then let's see how it sustains. Let's see how they make that transition from a private company to a public company. And so there's a lot there to learn, but exciting stuff. All right, Scality. They got $60 million. Oh, I didn't finish the update on this. So they got $60 million. And it's kind of interesting because this is a late round for them. This is their sixth round. At this point, like, you should be in that growth mode. That basically means they're either getting ready to get acquired for some huge amount of dollars, or they're starting to look at their IPO. The reason I included Scality in our list is kind of twofold. One, they're using the money to invest in product development and marketing and to expand its staff. That fits growth. That makes sense to me. And it's if you go look at the way that they did their website, I actually kind of liked it. And what I liked about parts of it that made sense to me, Paul, was, because if you look at that and you go, well, hold on, that's storage, right? So they're a competitor with like NetApp and IBM and even some Red Hat stuff. So they're names we know in security, but you look at it and you go, is this a pure play security thing these days? Understanding what data you have and where it is and how it's stored, and if you're paying too much to store it, or if you could reduce it, which gets you a better way to protect it and saves money. You need to pay attention to that. Like that, this is a surprisingly hot area. It's dirt cheap now to store stuff compared to what it was. But do you know where it is? What are your backups like? Do you even need to worry about backups? How do you get to the data? How do you protect it? Right, all those questions have come into play. So from a security perspective, there are opportunities here to take a look at it. So I included it. Minim. By the way, trying to do a Google search for this, I think people need to think about how they name their companies better. But it's a $2.5 million seed funding round. There you go. That could be a large seed or a small A. When you go look at the people that are involved in it, this is not anybody's first rodeo. They all have. In fact, what I really liked, if you go to the minim.co website, they've got a whole why Minim, and it talks about how when we had which was the botnet that attacked all the cameras.
It was Mirai. Thank you.
Mirai, thank you. Yep, it was almost there. Anyway, it basically said, we watched this happen, and we went, there's got to be a better way to do it. So the way this came across the wire to me was, they're going to secure the Internet of Things for the consumer, and I went, I love that. I haven't found a consumer yet saying, hey, you got to do this differently, man. And then I went, whoa. So you go to their website, and Paul, I was really jazzed up about this, and so I'm kind of curious what you think of it. But here's what I read. Like, you go to their website, and it says, all right, Minim secures and manages the Internet of Things for faster home networks and happier customers. And I went, oh, wait. I kind of like that, right? Because if you've got, I've got kids, and I switched over to Google. I know you suggested Ubiquity. I went Google because it was just simpler for me. The number of things that are freaking connected to our network is astonishing to me. So we had to set up a mesh, and I pay attention to it. And every now and then, Dad, the internet's not working. Everything got really slow. What's going on? And so their point is, yeah, you don't need to do that. But then they say happier customers. And I went, wait, so this is for consumers, but they're not selling to consumers. Well, you go down and they're talking about service providers. And they're talking about trying to understand and predict where there's going to be problems on your network. But they said that so many times consumers get screwed up by this that they're causing truck rolls for the service providers, for your cable or your internet provider to come out and do checks to the tune of $1.2 billion a year, essentially waste calls they didn't have to make. And I went, oh, this is great. They're solving a consumer problem, but who they're going to have pay for it are the people that are already pissing billions of dollars away.
In support costs.
That's freaking
I like
brilliant.
that business model. Now, speaking of consumers, that what I really want, is actually, so we talk about our sponsor, Automox, and some of the other competitors in that space, and we want help, patching our stuff. I still think there's a big gap when it comes to IoT in the enterprise and mid-market and small businesses. How do I keep all my devices patched, right? Like all the mixers and video boards and all that stuff. Like those aren't Windows systems. It's a manual process right now. And there's so many different types that how do we get a handle on that? And there are a lot of IoT security companies emerging that we should look at. Like I have that problem probably times 12 in my house.
Yep.
Because a lot of times I acquire technology just to play around with it and use it so I can understand it and talk about it on the show. And the security repercussions of that. So I probably have more technology, right? I do have more technology than the average person because, it's my job to evaluate this stuff. And I'm a nerd and I would probably have all that stuff too. But
I was going to say, is that what you tell the IRS? It's my job. I have to have all this.
Now it's just, it's a tax write-off as well, which is awesome. So I really want for my house, like I've got, and I'm not saying, maybe I don't have, let's say I have like your average amount of technology, right? I've got maybe 3 TVs in the house. They each have, a Fire Stick. I've got a wireless router, wireless access point, a wireless router. I've got some home automation, so maybe I have a smart things. I've got a couple of Google devices. Those are all things that most people have now today. How do I make sure all this stuff is up to date in my house? Like what's the equivalent of patch management, but for my house? Like I just want something easy how do you make it easy enough for the end user to be able to apply security and know everything needs to be updated? Like the amount of updating that you have to do manually in your home is just astonishing today.
Staggering.
Yeah. And then you've got all your tablets and phones and laptops as well, which multiply exponentially, especially in my house.
Mine too. Yeah. And,
Right.
and I look, I'm in the same business as you. I'm happy. If I could be a Luddite, I'd do it. But this stuff makes life easier. And so, we got tons of it for everybody. All right. Cybersecurity Pledge. Here's why I included this. There's something come up called the Cyber Tech Accord. And it's at cybertechaccord.org.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, apparently this got some traction leading into RSA. It only popped up for me last week. 34 companies have signed on, but some of the notables who have not yet signed on: Apple, Amazon, Twitter, and Google. Mm-hmm. And they go on and they say, blah, 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 cybersecurity is getting worse, and last year proves it. So to me, it starts to sound a little bit like hyperbole. And they said, but we got 4 principles. Strong defense. So they said, look, as companies, we're going to do a better job of building defense in. I go, well, I kind of like that. No offense. That's the one that's catching everybody's attention. Mm-hmm. They're saying we're not going to work with the government in order to build offensive capabilities. And I thought, okay, by the way, not sure if that's good or bad, but okay. Right. Capacity building, so it's like a resilience, and then collective action. And their point was, look, if we all try to do it by ourselves, we're screwed, but if we work collectively, we're better. On its face, I like it. But I kind of look at these things, and I include it under innovation because, if you're a company, do you sign this because, I'm sure that came with and support our foundation for somewhere between $20,000 and $200,000. By the way, I didn't look up the number. I don't know what the actual number is. But typically things like this, they're not like you sign on it because it's good. You're getting some mileage out of saying that you support it and you're part of it and you're excited about that. It typically costs money for you to sign on. You probably go to a couple meetings for it, etc. Here's what I'm curious about, and I'm straight up curious from both Paul and our audience. Does this matter to you? I mean, like if you're evaluating a company and they've signed on to the pledge, is that more likely to do business with them or maybe less likely to do business with them? If they didn't sign on, does it matter to you, or is this just like, yeah, it made the news cycle? Thanks for talking about it, Michael. Hey, I got real stuff to do here. Let's move on. I'm I'm just kind of curious, like where you stand on it and whether I'm getting a little more cynical as I get older than perhaps I need to be.
Yeah, I don't think it's even intended, and I don't think it's going to have any I mean, it might for some people, but I don't think it's going to influence purchasing decisions in either direction, really. I mean, unless it really takes off, but, based on the principles they have here, I think it's just kind of like a PR effort that is not going to make a huge impact on purchases.
So then what we should do is look at it for what it is and be happy and say, wow, look at that. We're talking about cybersecurity. So if you feel yourself about to utter the words, no one cares, no one's paying attention, why won't these big companies do anything? I guess the answer is they're at least paying attention. They've distilled out some principles. They're signing on to it. They're pledging it. I guess we'll kind of see where it goes. But I think it, if nothing else, shows that there's a trend to take security more seriously.
Well, and if it helps the greater good, like we're going to talk about next in our interview that was pre-recorded, when stuff goes down, that you're like, wow, some like companies need to stand up and have security, have a voice through these larger, more influential companies. Wouldn't that be nice? I think Domain Tools is certainly in that situation, trying to work politically with some of the effects of GDPR on who is data, which we talk about at length in the interview. So I think that groups like this, if they can help with causes like that, that's really for the greater good. That's a good thing, and I think it's kind of independent of purchase influences.
All right, so we're going to chalk this up as good. Maybe not as awesome as it sounds, but still good. So we'll take a short break, which is a good chance for you to like us at facebook.com/Security Weekly. We live stream this program and all the programs that run across Security Weekly. Ours is every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You can get us on YouTube or Facebook, and you can watch us live. And if you go to Facebook, you can like us, which helps our egos, but it also keeps you in touch with everything that we're working on. Love to see you there. And when we come back, a pre-recorded interview with Tim Chen.